So for the second discussion, IPO best practices and experiences, I'd like to welcome up to the stage Mr. Bob Partridge from EY, who will introduce our panelists.
Good morning, everybody. Can I invite my fellow panel members to come on up on stage, please? We'll get seats arranged. While my distinguished colleagues are coming up, I do want to acknowledge, Michael said earlier, made your own statement, Michael, this is a historic day. I think I was personally overwhelmed with the number of IPOs starting today. But it's really a historic day because this is the second of two great panels that have come together to talk about value creation in the road to IPO. I want to personally thank James and the SAP team, as well as the ADX team for putting this together. The road to IPO, success stories, lessons learned. I think we'll have a good discussion today from my colleagues here. And what I'd like to start with is just maybe we start with you, Jason. And I'd invite each of you guys to just spend a minute or two introducing yourself and your firm. And I think it will put things into perspective because we have an incredible amount of experience up at the panel table here in terms of having created value both from a private equity standpoint as well as from an operational advisory and just well-rounded experience perspective. So, Jason.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm Jason Hu from CDH Investments. I was there for 9 years, and this will be a good opportunity to share some of my experiences and probably a bit of lessons as well, together with my portfolios coming to a public market. I've personally come into this exhibition before a couple of times, with some of my portfolios, such as Bell, Sun Real Estate, etc. I'm also still working with a few others for IPO right now, and also one or two actually at the end of the day back out from the IPO application from Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Also a couple of points about CDH Investments. We are a China-originated fund. Established itself in 2002 as a spin-off from CICC, the first international joint venture investment bank in China. So the group of the founding partners and a group of us have been working together for over 15 years. And as a China-originated fund, we started as a PESP division, and then gradually expanded into venture capital, real estate, mezzanine, hedge fund, etc. as a multi-product and alternative investment platform. Also, we are one of the first funds in China raising RMB fund, so both managing US dollar fund and RMB fund. So not only facing bringing our company to the public market in Hong Kong, the US, also in China as well. So we also definitely see some different mindsets or methods to prepare IPO in overseas market and also China market. So I'm very happy to share that with you guys.
Thank you, Jason. John?
Good morning. My name is John McGuire. I'm head of corporate finance at Orient Financial Markets. I've been in Hong Kong 22 years. I started my life out as a lawyer. So I was involved in helping companies as a lawyer in this market to IPO, and then in 95 I moved into investment banking. Since then, helping companies to IPO in Hong Kong. Orient Financial Markets is a boutique investment bank in Hong Kong. We're also a listed company, so I've got some experience of running a listed company as well as bringing companies to listing. The focus of our firm is basically institutional stockbroking with corporate finance and M&A. On the corporate finance side, as I mentioned, we do sponsorship work for companies like IPO, we do M&A work for to say the word in this venue. We do plan to list things. We get struck by lightning now. And we do general financial advisory work.
Great, thank you, John. Edwin?
I am Chun, CEO of Century Pharmaceutical Holdings Limited. You can see from the name that we are a health business in China, and we are a Hong Kong listed company, main board, working with Foreign Capital, one of the largest PE in PRC, and then we just have SAP Online. So our company is a typical, I think, engineer pick for this kind of conference, because all the questions or issues will be addressed to some kind of we call ourselves a target company or investor company. It's quite typical case, and we can have a lot of things to share later on. Thank you.
Edwin, thank you. Frank?
Good morning. My name is Frank Marinero. I'm Managing Director at Warburg Pincus here in North Asia. I started my career in New York as an attorney as well. Moved on and worked for Merrill Lynch Global Private Equity, also in New York. Been here in Asia for about 40 years. Warburg Pincus is one of the oldest private equity funds, starting in 1966. We've raised about 13 private equity funds. We just recently closed our Fund 11 in May with total capital commitments of 11.2 billion, which is the largest fund raised post financial crisis. Here in China, we've invested $4 billion in over 80 companies, 20 of which have gone IPO here in China or overseas. We're very, very committed to the region, having offices in Beijing, Shanghai, and here in Hong Kong, and the opportunity to be in SAP and Hong Kong Stock Exchange.
Great, thank you, guys. Let's jump into some questions. What I want to do, we had a great first panel that touched on a few of the challenges, and I think as we start thinking about exits, being able to identify some of the best attributes of the types of companies that are able to go public. That road to IPO is often cluttered with companies that have fallen to the wayside. But the ones that make it, like the 6 did this morning, to the ultimate ringing of the bell, typically have some common attributes. And what I'd like to do is maybe, Jason, I'll ask you first, and then John, maybe I'll ask you to add some comments as well. Thoughts on, with your experience, what are the must-have attributes that really help ensure that a company on the road to IPO will be successful?
I think the first thing, and also the most basic attributes from the company or from the founder, is about fairness. With that said, it means the company or the owner should have the attention that this is the company's money, different from your money. That's a very basic idea, but there's still a lot of companies struggling with that. This requires a proper structuring and a proper mindset from the owner that to handle the external shareholders in a fair manner, to restrict the related transaction, to make sure all the transactions are made on arm's length basis. That's say easy, but when the reality comes to the business situation, it's usually very difficult. And then the second attribute I would say is transparency. That's about the transparency. For the status, you're going to be IPO, and you're going to be a public company. You are going to catch a lot of attention. I understand a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, and maybe in many industries, the company itself are very low key. Signature itself is very low key as well. But when you go public, it's not possible to still hide that status. We have personal experience with some company not willing to disclose the IPO preparation, even inside the company, until they come to reinvent. We need to talk a lot of that. And second, a lot of transparency is financial, on the financial side, on the operations side, on the business side. You need to at least fulfill the basic requirement to be a public company, to make a full disclosure on all the necessary information. Some of the companies or owners are not very comfortable to do that. Thirdly, I would say it's more to the founder or some of the senior executives. It's about the willingness to learn. To be a public company requires a lot of attention or skills to deal with the regulatory requirements, to deal with public markets. When I say learning, not necessarily about all these basic skills, it's about the mindset. You need to understand all the logics behind all of these policies, which is very thick here from the stock exchange. But you do have a group of intermediaries, a lot of agents to help you to understand and to comply. But the important thing is for the executives to understand why you need to pay attention to this, why these things are important to external public shareholders. And this actually comes to similar to how you deal with your partners, suppliers, customers, etc. So that kind of mindset is very important. Some of my portfolios, actually amazing, the founders or the executives exhibit the strong capability to understand all of these logics and actually memorize a lot of these policies. An entrepreneur sometimes is amazing on that. I think, and probably the fourth is about the commitment. It's a lot of resources to put in the preparation and to deal with all the public shareholders and many other stakeholders as well. That's not about just about the expenses and money. It's about your energy, your time, and even to develop some deep relationship, understanding, and trust with these shareholders. You need to personally know them and understand their aspects, and then understand their activities. I think that's a lot of commitment.
Jason, it's interesting that the question must have attributes. You didn't just have one silver bullet. It really does sort of help explain that the companies that do make it to that bell ringing really have to be well-rounded. There's quite a bit. John, what would you maybe add to some of the things that Jason's really mentioned?
Yeah, I think we should look at attributes from two angles. One is what makes the selling of the IPO successful, because it's a sad fact that many companies apply for listing, go through the process, diligence, prospectus drafting, going through answering all the exchange queries, get listing approval, then don't list. And every year there's a number of companies, and the sad fact is they couldn't list the price that they wanted to list at one reason or another. So we can look at it from what makes a company a good company to sell at the IPO, and also what makes a company succeed in that process, both getting listed and then surviving after being listed. And I think we've heard from PE funds the sort of things they look for in companies who are now investing. And I don't want to repeat what they said, but I think one of the key factors when trying to sell an IPO is looking at growth. So if you've got a company which is making good profits every year, in London we call it a nice learner, level of profits is flat, stable, maybe paying out a good dividend yield, but if you're not a REIT or a utilities company, people are looking for investment based on share price appreciation. I know Philippines are nice to have as well. So if you've got no growth, there's going to be no share price appreciation growth. It's going to be difficult to get people to come in the IPO. So having growth is good, but what's even better than having growth is having growth that outpaces the industry average. So you may be in an industry where it's just growing very strongly and just riding that wave, and your peers are actually accelerating growth even faster than you're managing to grow. So really, companies that have got outperforming growth will always be companies which are good companies to sell at the IPO. I think one thing you just touched on earlier as well is differentiation. There's so many companies, 1,400 companies on main board now, all different sectors. whatever sector you're looking at, listing a company, there are always peer companies listed out there already. So you have to differentiate the company in some way and make it attractive through saying how they're different. And I think this is actually a big problem for PLC property developers at the moment. We've had 4 PLC property developers this year, 5 last year. We had a whole cluster in 2007, 2009, some very big ones. In those days, like Country Garden, Longford, and there's a big selection of people to invest in this sector. So companies which are coming to list now, and a lot of them want to list, because in China it's very difficult to get financing from banks for property development, and it's very difficult to list your company in China. But Hong Kong is a natural place to go and raise equity for these guys. It's very difficult to differentiate stuff. So when you see these prospectus of these companies, always trying to say what their niche is. Maybe their land bank is their niche, or their particular sector, or particular focus on a particular city, or a sector in a particular city. I think this is actually one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of factual listings at the moment, and prices of property companies in the market, shells are higher than other types of shells. This year, I think we've seen 3 RTOs companies, we've seen 6 general office property companies, and 1 change control through subscription. So differentiation is a key. I think that's been the problem in that sector why we're not seeing new listings there. I think also important is from the getting listed point of view is having sufficient structures in place, especially on the financial and accounting side within the company. Once you're listed, you have to get your accounts out on time. You don't have that same degree of leeway that you have as a private company. If you fail to get your accounts out on time, you will be suspended, and that's a disaster for investors. And just budgeting and internal controls. It's really important to you want a smooth IPO process and then to have a smooth existence of the listed company afterwards. Do you have really good internal controls and financial reporting systems in place? So if you can hire or have, if you're looking for already, a CFO who is very well experienced, who maybe has worked with listed companies before, maybe he's been through the IPO process before, this will really help get you from start to finish in the IPO process. And I think also what was said earlier about management buying in, they've really got to commit to the process. There's a huge commitment to just management time to deal with all of the due diligence and queries that you get to get your company listed.
John, thank you. I'm going to pick up on maybe one of the latter points that you mentioned, hiring a CFO, and I'll open it up a lot more broadly. I think, Scott, you said when you were up here, management capability is so critical to the success of a business, and we've already heard a couple of you guys say the right management team, again, commenting on the importance of management just in going public. And Frank, let me invite you to maybe talk a bit about how do companies, particularly from a private equity standpoint, try to ensure that they've got the right team that's ready for the public markets. Obviously, John, you mentioned CFO. I think it's beyond just financial reporting. It could be legal. It's operational. It's certainly the mindset that exists across the broader management team, as well as the skill sets that they have. So, Frank, can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. When we make a private equity investment, of course, as Scott said before, one of the things that we look at is management and how we can upgrade. But also, you buy into the part of the investment diligence process is buying into the management team. So there are people who in that management team who you want to work with going forward. And one of the exit options, of course, IPO isn't the only exit option, but one of the exit options is IPO. So you're always working in that possible direction. And during that time, when you're working toward an IPO, you're working toward building revenue, but you also want to build earnings. And one of the issues that we found in some of the companies is that there is a tendency to build, and you grow the top line, but you want it to trickle down to the bottom. There are various ways to work with that to make sure that it trickles down to the bottom. You have to get the right people in order to do that. You also have to have the right systems and so on. But what I wanted to say is that during that process, as you're leading up to the IPO, you may have a team in place that's right for that time. And because during that time you have the ability to make mistakes and iron out the way that you're going to perform in the future. Once you do decide to go IPO, you have to be ready for prime time, which means that your CFO not only has to have those systems in place, but your CFO has to be ready for those analyst calls, and has to be ready for the camera, has to be ready for the roadshow. Also, we found that the market also likes a CFO that knows and is familiar with the business. So there's a bit of a tension. If that CFO necessarily is maybe not ready for prime time, you may want to keep that person, but also have other people in the wings or support that person with a financial controller or a vice president of finance or various other folks who can actually communicate better with the market. Also, language is an issue as well, and also understanding what the analyst community wants. So you need to have the bottom to make sure that the reporting is correct and that you don't make a mistake. It's how to be state, but at the same time, you need to have the face forward, the right face for the company, and that's a process. From a regulatory standpoint as well, you need to have the right combination of outside advisors as well as folks that can interact internally with the outside advisors and also have the ear of management so that the advice of the outside advisors is actually taken and respected in the right way. And I think we heard in the previous panel about the difficulty of one of my colleagues here about dealing with founders. You really need to have a team in place over you need to have a founder ready for the prime time. Also, you need management buy-in. I heard that, and a lot of that goes with compensation. What we've tried to do is during that 3 or 4 year period is sort of manage compensation, based on, of course, revenue targets and earnings, but also in the public markets too. You can create stock awards, or you can create cash bonuses or stock awards based on the performance of the stock. But you can also even try to focus management a little bit more by also focusing those awards in the vesting or the amount of the awards, not only based on stock price, but on hitting performance targets. It could be revenue targets and absolute amounts. It could be EBIT percentages of revenue in each year, or targets in each year that you're trying to get, and then the upside for management is potentially great, and I think that's how you can get the right team in early and actually get them through that IPO process.
Frank, thanks. It's interesting how many times you said must-have, and I think there were quite a few nods of the head throughout the audience as you said that. Jason, maybe let's stay with the private equity point of view. Maybe you could bring a little balance to some of Frank's comments to something that the other Frank said earlier, that when you do invest in these companies, the management teams, particularly the founder, could be very dominating. And I think Vinay said something about cost consciousness among Chinese companies in particular. How do you make all this happen?
I mean, when you made the investment in the company, you have no other choice of the founder. I mean, the founder's personalities there. Some of them, has a lot of charisma. Will be very easy to communicate with the outsider, but some of them might not. They are even not willing to talk in the public. So, if you have a very open, kind of like high charisma type of founder, which will make life much easier for sure. Because they themselves can very easily to sort of exhibit their strategy, differentiate their company, and made a very sound connection with the external stakeholders. At the end of the day, analysts, shareholders, and all other stakeholders are willing to hear the company's thinking from the founder or the chairman in person. But if you have no other choice, I mean, the CFOs and then the VP in charge of capital markets will be very key. They need to be kind of a well-rounded person, has very easygoing personality, has the strong execution capability. Hopefully, you will have them within the company. If not, you need to, for some time, PE funds will help to hire external CFO or other key executives to help the company to prepare and to communicate with the external roles. To add on Frank's point, I think if you imagine this team is a pyramid, you have executives, CFOs, and then you definitely need a working team comprising mainly with the capital market team or IR team, finance team, legal team, which is very crucial to execute on daily works, to accumulate the database and experiences. To give you an example, we have invested, we have Sunac, which is a property developer listed in Hong Kong. As John pointed out, property development is very difficult to differentiate. Everyone is building houses. Almost all the major companies now have houses in Beijing. How do you differentiate? They have successfully built around 5% IR team, and they've been able to build a database with almost I think over 500 potential or existing investors or institutional investors. What price they bought the shares? Do they make money in property? Do they lose money? What are the major positions they hold? Who are they? What background, etc. All these databases, and then they have been able to closely track all the stock performances and then the tradings. One afternoon, I made one trade sale, and then the same evening, I got a call from the company asking why any other plan, and absolutely including a blessing, made some good reading of that. So very close tracking on that, and some of the staff also keep a very good analysis, on the market performance. When should they go for a second offering? When should issue a bond, etc. What's the market performance? So they have been able to maintain all of these work and come to the benefit to the company. This will be even more important if someday your CFO resigns. You still have all these previous experiences, databases, accumulated as in-house experience. I think that's great.
Jason, thanks. The team can't just be very narrow, so it does need to be a broader team. Edwin, I might ask you for a bit of a follow-up, maybe, and take us into a little broader direction. As an advisor to EY, it's great, similar to how Hanji described PEs sitting on the sidelines handing water out at a marathon. Many of us always sit on the sidelines saying what people are doing well, what people are doing could be better. As Frank here said a minute ago, the spotlight and the cameras are usually on the CEO and the rest of the management team. You're a CEO, you've been through this, and not just the road to an IPO, but well past in the life of a public company. There's so many different stakeholders and how important some of those become in the process. Maybe you can talk more broadly about all those different stakeholders and some of the things that you think are critical.
Thank you. These questions reminds me about more than 20 years ago when I was just graduated from the university. I worked for a listed company to acquire a target in Zhongshan, that means in Guangdong province. At that moment, I feel difficult because there's a different financial, cultural, legal, any other aspects is different from PRC entity and the Hong Kong listed company. But I said to myself, okay, this is what I get paid. Since I think this is 1992, But I was always worried I will be soon replaced because I thought the situation will improve when PRC, both the legal, the cultural system improves. But to my surprise, after 20 years now, I am still the bridge for the PRC entity to Hong Kong listed company. So we are facing actually more and more complicated stakeholders. Before, when the law and the regulations are unclear in PRC, it seems it's easier for us to get accommodated to the Hong Kong listed company. But after the situation improves, it seems more complicated because we are facing many governmental bodies apart from regulated bodies because we are in the retail business. We have to face the Ministry of Commerce. Because we are a foreign company, even though we are Hong Kong, we consider us as Chinese, but we still are a Hong Kong foreign company. We are still restricted by the Foreign Exchange Bureau. The tax regulations are really more complicated. So it seems to us that after that several years of development, the stock exchange, no offense to stock exchange, but still we still have a big gap for those PRC entities to the listing platform. I don't know whether those gentlemen outside in Morning 6 listed company, I don't know whether they really understand what is the listing rules. Because as the situation is changing, so we are facing more difficult questions to answer. Basically, I saw before a fax machine being depreciated for 30 years in our company. Another thing is, what will happen when a board decision is made? We have a board resolution, but suddenly you found, not my company, I have to say, but you happen to find that the legal representative had made a chop on the contract, which is not approved by the board reform. So this, we will have to face many different unknown stakeholders. We have faced many, I don't know whether Jason has done before for real estate developer. There are many things you can do in China, but you cannot tell. I am not talking about illegal issues, but some of the cases I have incidents is that we have shopping malls. There should be a stairs, but long before we change into an elevator. But if we own this, we can operate for a long time. But if you want to help, if you want to work with, for example, other real estate developers or real estate funds, if you want to buy, they have to make sure these all fulfill the regulations of the fire service. So we have to change back all the elevators to the stairs. So this is the common dilemma we are facing in doing business in China.
Edwin, thanks. It's a good way to put things in perspective. The right management team is so critical. That management team needs to be very broad in thinking. It's not just how to get through the IPO process, but all the things that inherently exist at a public company. The next direction I'd like to take, and Mark, I think you set it up. SAP is leading sponsor here, and EY. We love to collaborate with the premier technology company in the world. You said it well, Mark. It's global war out there, and how you manage resources typically is what dictates the winners from the losers. And so I want to maybe start with Frank. I'm going to go back to you because I know Warburg's got a very strong focus on how technology is developed as a value creation within the Warburg companies. What role do you see technology playing in this road to an IPO and helping get there?
Sure. As Warburg is a growth investor, so we're looking for companies that we see have a very big trajectory with respect to growth in revenue, where we see the potential. Because a lot of companies, a lot of smaller companies, when they're growing fast, the growth takes precedence, and locations, for example, stores, it could be retail outlets, could be restaurants, and they multiply if the model is successful, and very often you find that each location will have its own. We were talking about internal controls. Each location could have its own system of accounting on an Excel, even on an Excel spreadsheet. It just happens because a company grows very quickly, and people are thinking about the growth as opposed to thinking about making sure that it's coordinated. Then once we come in and we see the potential, the question is, how do you control the growth? That's where I kind of went to before, where you're growing the revenue, but the expenses are growing sort of proportionally with it. So how do you narrow that? And we have a very large focus on IT. We have in-house expertise, worker personnel who go in to partner with our portfolio companies to explore with management ways in which we can improve the IT to drive better efficiency. We can't do that alone, so we look for partners like SAP to help us, and it really comes down to getting the right ERP system in place, CRM system in place, but also on the right timetable. You can't go. I mean, IT can't be the tail, wagging the proverbial dog. You can't get to the end immediately. You have to follow the company's strategic plan with respect to its growth, and at the same time implement changes in the IT system. You're not going to necessarily get there overnight, so it's a long process. It's a process where you have to collaborate with management, so that you may not necessarily take the hammer to do it, but you do it incrementally in a way that makes it work, so that it makes it palatable, and you create buy-in. And it can be done, but you need the right delivery system to do it. So we find at Warburg the right delivery system is using our own professional deal teams, our own internal IT expertise, and the right outside advisors who can collaborate and be creative. Because very often there could be an IT approach where you come in with a hammer. You got to change this, you got to change that. Of course, in the perfect world, it would be great to have an instantaneous new logistics system for a company, or a way to reinvent the finance function overnight. But that's not going to happen. The business has to continue. So you have to think of a way to do it that actually gets to the end in a way that's both palatable to management, palatable to us, and allows the business to grow in a better way and not stop, essentially.
Frank, thanks. Edwin, maybe let's go back, inside the company. The whole role of technology, and particularly we've heard the word transparency a few times. I mean, you got financial, you got operational, all kinds. How do you see the role of technology?
Yeah. Of course, as a listed company, because the corporate governance requirement is high, and we are facing, as I said before, we are facing many stakeholders, especially from the capital markets, from the investors, regulatory bodies. Before we don't have the suitable technology, we are facing a time lag, because as Scott just said, he may have some incidents that it may take a very long time for the financial data or for sales data to be reported. Because the regulations in Hong Kong is getting tighter, then technology will help a lot on saving not only manpower but also to improve efficiency. Another very important issue, the technology, like SAP, when we work with SAP this year, is that I don't want to talk too much on the technological side, because all of you are experts in here. But this is a very good tools for Chinese companies to create a benchmark for what should be changed, because if the company and the enterprise is growing bigger and bigger, and business, for example, line of business is changing or expanding, we should need the new technology to help the company to improve. But why and how and which one to choose? And how to convince the existing management, as many gentlemen just said, the founder may be very, very reluctant to change, or even the middle level are very different to allow them to convince them to change. So this technology like SAP ERP system will be a very good tool, a benchmark for the company to understand what we require. Chinese is poisoned by Confucius, because we are very important to our faith. So this course is very important. The best run business runs that. Nobody will want to admit that we are not the best run business. So it creates a very good benchmark for those people. Okay, you see many MNCs, they are best run business. Okay, they are running that. Okay, we don't have to worry, or you don't have to challenge why we want to change, or we want to adopt SAP to pay a huge amount. Worthwhile amount to improve or to boost the business of the company. So as a manager, because I am the end user only, I will not involve into too many technical, but the management will see it apart from technology or technical tools, and also a very important, I can say, a political tool. Maybe in the future you can have some more investigation on what will we do. How? Because in our case is that when Honey Capital invests in us, we work with them for quite a long time. They actually use this tool to convince also including the chairman and all other senior officials to change or to improve the efficiency of the company. So this is a very, very good benchmark for everybody to accept.
Edwin, thanks. I made a note to get back to the office. I'm going to find out if EY runs SAP, because I think we are one of the best run companies. I want to go to one more question to one of my panel members, and then open it up to questions from the audience. And John, I want to go to you. Probably among everyone that's been on both panels, you've probably been exposed to more IPOs than anybody, just given your background. And you made an interesting comment earlier about some of the key attributes, one of them being differentiation. All that, I think, comes down to, quite frankly, James, the SAP tagline. It is, how do you get to be a best run company and position you for an IPO? Maybe invite you for any either broad closing comments as you listen to this. And I know, just from talking with somebody earlier, the theme of regulatory requirements, people are wondering about what's going on there. You don't necessarily need to spend a lot of time there, but you can just broadly comment on anything you think might be relevant in closing.
Thank you, Bob. I think probably the overall thing I'd say, the overall most important thing when thinking about going IPO is preparation. I think that going public is a bit like having a baby. So you get pregnant, you go through the pregnancy stage, you're all looking forward to the big day when the baby arrives, and too many companies just think that's the end of it. Babies arrive, great, end of story. But actually it's more important to plan for what happens after the baby arrives, because day one, that baby needs looking after. And you don't have any lead time on that. It needs nappies, it needs food, it needs the whole shebang. And it's the same with listing a company. Everyone gets so focused on listing it, going through the listing process. Quite often people don't pay enough attention to making sure all the systems are in place so that post-listing you can comply with the myriad of rules and regulations and reporting requirements and analysts' calls and investor desires that you're subject to as a listed company. And so looking back at my experience, I've seen extremes of this where one of the best IPOs I was involved in, the company set up a dedicated team just to work on the IPO of mid-management people who were reporting to a dedicated senior manager. They had a proper data room in place. And these guys had the authority to call upon resources from within the group to deal with all the IPO inquiries, all the due diligence. It was a very, very smooth process. Any information you wanted, very, very quickly obtained. So on the other hand, you see sometimes when the senior management, they want to be listed, but they don't buy into the commitment, and they just think everything will take care of itself. And there was a company which was in the process of applying this, who actually wasn't sponsoring it. It's, the chairman's a very good friend of mine. He asked me to be an IND, independent non-exec director, rather than be sponsor. So I saw from the outside the train wreck that was happening with his listing, because he just kept thinking that everything would take care of itself, and so the due diligence inquiries were mounting yet, not getting answered. He didn't have records when records were being requested, and lawyers were going to reconstitute simple things like the register of members that hadn't been updated properly. Even though they've actually got a US tech fund in there as a major investor, they still hadn't really paid too much attention to these things. And at the end of the day, they just gave up. You see, the chairman, who's a rich guy, doesn't need to list things, forget about it, it's too much trouble. So you've really got to buy in, and you've really got to do the preparation. And then one last thing, I'll just pick up on something Jason was saying, because I thought it was an interesting comment about transparency. Because we all just take it for granted, you're a listed company, you've got to be transparent. But this actually I found to be a bit of an issue. To take some extreme examples, I've been approached by 3 different companies. One with business in North Korea, one with business in Iran, and one company that actually their business involves national security for various countries in the Middle East. And you think, how on earth can you be transparent about your business? And I asked the last company, so all your contracts, can you show me all your contracts? I said, well, I'd love to check. Come back to you. So for these types of business, that's one extreme. But for a lot of mainland companies, there are breaches of the laws. And if you look at a prospectus these days, maybe half of them, you see pages and pages, maybe not that many pages, half a dozen maybe, breaches of PRC laws. It could be simple things like foreign currency restrictions is a normal one. It might be not having relevant licenses, or you've got the license at one level and you should have gone a level higher, but now your lawyers have confirmed that you've got it at a city level, it should be provincial level. There may be land use rights problems, or another one that's actually quite common is the improper trade financing issues in China, where because of the difficulty of getting bank financing for certain types of business, they've been getting trade financing, and maybe they haven't been using that money for trade financing, they've been using it for something else. So these things, on the whole, are disclosure issues. So the way you deal with those as a sponsor, you say, fine, we've identified all these breaches, we'll get legal opinions and say what the consequences are, if there are any possible fines or anything like that. We state what it is and we try and fix it. We try and go to the regulator or the development government body and get some closure on the matter. But all too often you find controlling shareholders or management who are a bit worried about making these disclosures and they fight. There was one case I was involved in where it was a business which is not primarily in China but has some business dealings in China, and he'd been using his wife's personal bank accounts to effect payments in China, and they hadn't been complying with the foreign currency requirements. And he was paranoid to disclose this. It was only a very minor amount of money. His wife might get arrested next time she went to visit relatives or whatever in China. We had to do a lot of persuading to tell him, don't worry about it. No one's going to bat an eyelid, and show him lots of other prospectuses where similar breaches have occurred. So, for transparency, actually, it does tend to be a bit of an issue. We had another, years ago, which was a property company that was applying for listing. It was a good company, making good money, good land bank, but they've been involved in some regular financing activities. And again, we said, this is no big deal, just disclose it and fix it. And the chairman didn't want to disclose that he'd been involved in these technical breaches of certain laws in China, and said, I'd rather not do the listing, which can do that. So although we think it's a natural thing, sometimes it's a bit difficult to persuade people that actually, when you're a listed company, you've got to fess up and disclose things. A bit like post-listing. If you do something in breach of the listing rules, you're actually required to put your hand in the air and tell the exchange in the market, sorry, I've made a mistake and breached the rules. You can't just forget about it when no one notices. So I think that's actually a key thing to get the management to buy in to change from being a private company to being a public company and all the consequences that go with it.
Thanks, Sean. Very broadly, just so much to consider as any company goes down this road to an IPO, not just the process itself, but all the regulatory environments that a company might be subject to. Let's open it up to questions from the audience. I really invite anybody to ask. We've got a great panel here. Any questions on someone's mind to put to the group? See a hand going up over in the side. If we get a microphone over here, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first question is for all the panelists. Actually, John touched on that. My question is what type of companies should better avoid IPO? And I guess John actually touched on a lot of them already. So from your experiences, which type of companies should avoid thinking about IPO because their businesses are simply not suitable for it? My second question is more for Jason and Frank. For example, in Hong Kong, there is corporate governance guidance regarding the separation of the role between the chairman and CEO. Are you actively promoting that idea, or is it simply very anti-culture in the case of China at this stage of the development? So it's not something that you would bother talking about the investment in your portfolio. Thank you.
Great. Two great questions. It's interesting. The first question on what kind of companies should avoid. We discussed whether we ought to talk about that as a panel, and we decided let's instead talk about the positive, what works. But John, the question's now been put out. Any reaction to what kind of companies should avoid?
Sure, I think obvious things are things like if your business is in a country which is subject to international sanctions. Actually, I don't know what list I've been put on that I get approached by people from Iran and North Korea. I guess I'm off that list. But if your business is in an area where you can't make full transparencies, as like I mentioned, if you're involved in national security type businesses or businesses which have got government contracts that are very sensitive, that you just can't release the information.
So if you got something to hide, you probably need to avoid the public markets, I guess.
I think that in terms of industry sectors, the only thing I would say on there is obviously if you're in a twilight industry, it's probably not the best thing to do to try and come to the public market because the market won't be that interested. They're only interested in the sectors that have got growth potential, rather than if you're a VHS tape manufacturer or something, or something like that, or an electric typewriter company. So for industries where basically they've had their day and the world has moved on, I think there's not much point trying to IPO those sorts of companies.
Thanks, John. Jason, I'll just ask you and then we'll open it up for another question. The corporate governance question about split role, CEO and chair. Obviously, global stage, you got JP Morgan's board trying to figure out how to do it, so it's not easy anywhere in the world, let alone here. But point of view, locally?
Yeah, I think probably in China right now, this is not that critical yet, given a lot of the companies are still in the early stage. The founder are still doing the daily management work, and then the misalignment between the shareholders and then the major executives of the management team is not really an issue yet. I think maybe probably after 5 or 10 years, when the first generation of the founders back out, and then when this is more a professional management run company, then that issue will start to emerge. How to really make the corporate governance sound, and how to really separate the different roles.
Thank you. Let me take one last question. Quick one, if there is one.
On the chairman thing, the one point that I was going to make is that we were talking about the Confucian philosophy and face. I think that you can use it also as an opportunity to bring in a CEO to help a chairman when a company has grown to a certain point. very often a chairman has other ideas and wants to pursue other ventures, and so splitting it and bringing in a CEO in some instances is a good way to allow a chairman to branch out and think about other things. And it's also a potential way to bring in new talent and reinforcing that team before the IPO, and allow the chairman to have for the founder to continue to have a role. So it isn't something that, for the reasons that you see it in some of the other markets, but it is an opportunity to sort of bifurcate things and allow continuance and continue the right amount of due respect to the founder and that legacy.
John, something?
I just wanted just to add on that. I think that obviously having split CEO and chairman is seen as being best practice in terms of corporate governance. I don't want to defend firms that don't do it, but I think we see a split in the market between the big firms, big listed companies, and the small family-controlled listed companies. And so the small family-controlled listed companies, we tend to see more cases where they don't split the role, where one person occupies both roles. I'm not defending it, I'm just saying it tends to be those type of companies which are family-controlled. And so whilst it'd be good if they had a chairman, especially someone who's outside of that family group, probably not going to make a huge amount of difference in those type of companies in terms of their overall strategy and management and everything. But for the larger, more internationally run, companies, then it's certainly something we should see.
Thanks, John. I thought I saw a hand start to go up, but I am going to cut the questions. I want to keep us on schedule here. So I think we actually finished on a note that, Jason, you probably started us on as we started. The first thing you said was a great attribute was fairness, and it seemed like we circled back there at the end with, as you split those roles, the importance of getting management teams to focus on fairness to the company versus family businesses, family net worth becomes important. So I want to end there. I want to thank my panel, and I ask you guys to just go ahead and stay seated and invite up Tomas. Tomas is the global head of private equity for SAP, somebody that's been visiting us here in the region for quite a while, and ask you to come up.